All right. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today. I'm Shauna Pearson. I'm the president of Connect to Community. If you're new to Connect to Community, we are a parent resource, and we started in 2013 by a group of mothers that saw their children were exiting transition and wanted to create a space in the future that they wanted to see for them. And so since then, we have grown and evolved into an organization that has educational outreach, like the programming that you're going to see today. We also have social and community inclusion groups that meet monthly. We also have employment workshops, and we definitely support an employment first program within the state of Illinois. And our last is advocacy. Today, we are lucky to have our outreach coordinator, Cherie Humphrey, presenting. Cherie and her husband, Ted, have been married for 35 years. They have three sons. Two attend college, and their oldest son, Jeremy, is now 26 and lives at home. Cherie and Ted have navigated preparing their son, Jeremy, for adult life across numerous school districts, private therapies, medical specialists, as well as a wide variety of assessments and processes. And through it all, have developed a passion to help parents more confidently and successfully navigate their journey through transition planning. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Cherie.
Thank you, Shauna. Well, thank you everyone for joining us over your lunch hour today. I trust that you will have some little key idea to take away or an inspiration for this next leg of your journey, wherever you land in your journey. So speaking of, if you could just take a quick second, go in the chat and please put in what age your loved one is. And Shauna will monitor that, and she's going to monitor questions. So if you have questions along the way, if you have something urgent, you can use the hand emoji or just type urgent. Shauna will interrupt me, and I want this not just to be talking at you. Within reason, we'll try and do some back and forth as I go along, but the hour's going to go quick, so let's dive in. Okay, when the bus stops coming, or does it stop? Well, what actually happens is one chapter closes and another major chapter begins. So transition planning is overwhelming. And I want to share some tools that we created to get all overwhelming information organized. I'm going to start by setting the context of the major guardrails and to-dos in the transition phase. And then I'm going to get to showing what tools we created and used. And I'm hoping that these tools will serve as an inspiration to you all. Either you can use them. We will forward next week our materials from today's presentation. Either you can use them or improve upon them, or you've come up with one of your own that you could share with others. So I'm hoping to create more of a shared community where we help each other along on our journeys. Okay, so who are we? A little bit about the Humphrey family. This is my family back in 2013. Jeremy is in the middle. In that picture, he is 14 years old. That is when the transition planning journey is supposed to start, at least in the state of Illinois. This is our family now. I should have arranged everybody in the same order, but Jeremy's in the center between me and Ted, and my middle son, Jaden, and my youngest son, Elisha, are both in college now. And
So, Cherie, it looks like all the families have loved ones that are 18 to about 21.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Okay, thank you everybody for sharing that information. Keep the questions input coming. We want to help. So what is your loved one's vision for their adult life post-school? That's something I ask my sons Jaden and Elisha as well. So talking about real quick about Jeremy. Jeremy is let me go back to that previous slide. Jeremy is very social. He does have mild cerebral palsy. He definitely has cognitive delay. He cannot read. He cannot do math. He can only follow simple directions. He's still very distractible. He still, for example, doesn't know left from right. And he still needs a lot of prompts. And we threw every resource we possibly could to get Jeremy ready for adulting life. And in later slides towards the back end, I'll share with you where we're at today. So let's quickly review some of the things that are to bear in mind. For this group, you all are probably painfully aware of these pieces. And if any of them are sliding through the cracks, now is the time to get on top of it. So what you see here in this slide, this past fall, we had both Matt Cohen and Mo Booty. Matt is an attorney. Mo is an advocate. They both did a lecture series this past fall on transition planning, the law, IEPs. You can go back to the Connect to Community archives to listen to those or glean any valuable information. But I just wanted to review what does the law say? What is to be covered? The schools are supposed to be thinking about what comes next after 22. Some of our loved ones go on to junior college or even four-year university. Cherie Schneider, who is an expert on Social Security benefits, her son was born with a disability, but he went to the University of Illinois. And I believe he graduated bronze tablet, which is an incredible honor. Both Ted and I are alumni of U of I. And I can only imagine what that was like, but he had accommodations and supports to get him through four-year university. The schools should definitely be, if your loved ones are hovering about 18, 20 years of age and employment is an option, the school should be very seriously working on finding them a job now. Adult services, independent living. This is the conundrum for all of us, especially in the state of Illinois. But back when we started our journey, we were indeed thinking about where Jeremy would live after he aged out at 22. Well, back then it was 21. We'll get to that in a few minutes, but. All right, and if you hear the word person-centered plan, which all of you have by now, and you're reviewing it, you know that the instruction, all the related services, getting out into the community, employment, activities of daily living are all supposed to be taken into consideration by the schools. So given that you're all well into, I'm going to go really quick through the first couple years on this transition timeline. Okay, so at 14 and a half years, which we're all well past, I trust all of you have signed up on the PUNS list. The priority of utilization, or excuse me, prioritization of urgency of need for services. That says it all right there, that in our state, there is a lottery system for who gets services. But that funding is really important because once our kids age out of school, I mean, if they go to four-year university, that's one set of costs. But if they are going on after 22 into a day program, it can cost up to $2,400 a month. So for us and our family, we use our PUNS funding. We have the home-based waiver to pay. I pay myself as a PSW, and that money goes right out the door to pay our agency where my son goes for programming. We'll get to that in a minute as well. Assessments, is anyone schools, are your schools, just put in the chat room, are they doing assessments with your loved one? They should be thinking about that, but you all are well past that. At 16, you should have your state ID. You should be thinking about employment.
We
If you're
do have one 14-year-old.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm trying not to share what many are. Okay, so real quick, I just want to hover at 16 years. Not that you have to get your child on the PACE bus, but at least be thinking about it. Have it in the back of your mind how you're going to get transportation set up for your loved one. I'm going to explain that in specificity in just a little bit here. Start looking at day program and housing options. Back in this phase, when Jeremy was between 16 and 18 years of age, I went to every single Friday forum, every single informational tour I possibly could that Connect to Community and other providers hosted. And I just curated all this information and caught a vision for what the great ideas are out there in terms of day programming options, employment options, housing options. So, and then as I curated all that information, I would try to hold it in my head to figure out how we're going to put this in an IEP or put this into some kind of plan. Now, I want to say a couple important things about this 18th year. It's a major year. Those of you who are already here, if your loved one qualifies for supplemental security income or SSI, I'm trusting that you're on it and you're working through that process. You're working through the guardianship process, because once your loved one became a legal adult, now you can't talk to your insurance companies, doctors, etc. So you have to get that squared away. Real quick about ABLE accounts. They're a great idea if your loved one is gainfully employed and they're going to remain continually employed and they're on SSI. The ABLE account can be an asset. But if they don't have a stream of income or a major pot of money from grandma and grandpa or a relative or a loved one who's passing on an inheritance to your child, and because they cannot have more than $2,000 to their name to qualify for SSI, that money can go into an ABLE account. But if it's not sizable or it's not continuous, I found out the hard way, it's not worth it. The cost for the fees to maintain an ABLE account will dwindle your account down to nothing over time. So that's something to think about. Real quick, I want to talk about the student earned income exclusion. Again, these are all pieces to keep in mind as you're thinking through your planning and your tools. Ted and I own a business. We put our son on payroll for to earn his work credits towards SSDI. Regardless of that piece, I'm going to explain that in just two more clicks of my slide here. Regardless of that, if your student is working for competitively, they're receiving a paycheck, and they qualified for SSI, and they're still a student. So those three variables, they got SSI, they're still a student, and they're gainfully employed receiving a paycheck. You want to apply for the student earned income exclusion, because that will act as an insulator from you having to submit your child's paychecks to the Social Security Administration every month, where they'll deduct from their SSI monthly allotment what they've earned out of their paycheck according to a formula. You just bypass all that while your loved one is a student, and that can go all the way through 22. I found that out the hard way as well. And I had to monkey around with doing an audit with the Social Security Administration. I'm trying to spare you all that grief by explaining that. Okay, 22. I advise one of our guests here in the chat today, Stephanie, was talking about her loved one has a year and a half to go. Ideally, the last semester that if your loved one remains in the school system, goes from high school to transition programming, ideally that last year, their 22nd year, that last semester, January to May, looks as much like their first day, July 1st, or their first day, June 8th, whenever the school ends for the year. That it should be dress. I call it dress rehearsal. So whatever day programs they're courting, if you've been on waiting lists and now they're ready, to have you do trials at the day program, employment. Now's the time to be testing out your transportation services. We worked with Pace and with Uber. Uber is not sustainable. Well, at least it wasn't for us. It's $20 a ride, whereas Pace is $3.25 a ride. Big difference in sustainability. But we trialed both in the IEP under the auspices of the school or the transition programming. So these are some things to think about. Oh, go ahead. Was someone going to ask a question? Everybody with me so far? Okay. At 24 years, all right, I said just a few arrows back when we were talking about the student earned income exclusion and working towards your SSDI credits. I learned this from Cherie Schneider, again, going to one of those Connected Community Friday Forum informational sessions where I'm curating all this information, learning about SSI when Jeremy's 16 years old. And she talked about the golden ticket is to get SSDI, because at least then your loved one's income isn't as much an issue as it is with SSI alone. And in terms of health care, if Medicaid isn't sufficient, now we had private insurance as well, but we paid for that $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year to keep our son on our private health insurance. So you become eligible within 24 months of earning your SSDI status to go on Medicare. And this was what Cherie Schneider called the golden ticket. So I knew when back when Jeremy was 16 or 17 years old, I'm going to aim for that. I'm going to aim for those work credits. So we put Jeremy on our payroll for our business. He was earning his work credits, and sure enough, when he had earned the 6 credits, you have to earn 6 credits by the time you're 24. So that's why I put this arrow on the timeline, that if you can accomplish this, it is significant. I was just talking with a family at my church this past week who didn't know about this, and their son is past that age of 24, and the number of work credits that you have to earn in the next window to earn them to get an SSDI is substantively more. So the easiest window to earn them is between 18 and 24. Is anybody following or have any questions about that before I move on? Everybody with me? Okay, we're going to keep chugging through. Okay, I want to just say a quick word about assessment. If you've got your cell phones out, or you know how to do a screenshot of this screen, if you're curious about what assessments are out there, or whether or not your team is being thorough enough in their approach to assessment, capture this link. This is a transition assessment bank that was created by a gentleman named Ryan Iberly, but he heads up transition for U46, and he created a very thorough, robust bank of assessments in all types of categories: activities of daily living, communication, social, technology, employment. And they are the type of tests that you do not have to be a PhD in psychology to do. Some of them are self-directed. They can be given by a parent. They can be self-directed by your loved one if they can read or take the test themselves. So anyway, it's just something for you to check out. It's a great possible resource for you and to share with your team. If you have any private therapists, and they can, or your PSW has the wherewithal to support you in this effort, that's just something to think about if you're really trying to hone specifying what your loved ones' aspirations are, their skills are, what they know, and you're having a hard time quantifying or qualifying that. Assessments can be a great way to help give you some vocabulary. Okay. All right. Meaningful day. We're all on to that now, given this group here. But this was created by Connected Communities founder Barb Tobias years ago. She called it the 8 S's, although employment doesn't begin with the S. But when we're thinking about, for all our kids, or even for ourselves, what goals do we want? Our loved ones don't have to have a goal in every one of these areas, but this just gives you some framework to think about. All right, now we're going to transition to the tools that we used. So like I said, I was going to all of these. Okay, what you should be seeing on your screen is our transition objectives. I'm going to just try and scroll up here. Okay, can everyone see below is a list of transition objectives, and there's highlighting in green? Everyone see it? Okay. All right. After years of curating information, assessments, blah, 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 my husband and I, our ABA team, because through this journey, we had private ABA, we had private therapy at Easter Seals. I had a good relationship with my IEP or my education teams. They were very open to the idea of being pushed and challenged. We had numerous meetings to try and figure out what we were doing. And when things started coming down to the wire and Jeremy is hovering at about 19 years old, it was time to poop or get off the pot. We had to decide what was going to be important. And so we created a list of 7 goals for Jeremy. Okay, so the first one had to do with getting him up and getting him ready, and make sure he was dressed for the appropriate weather. Number two was could function at a ratio of 4 to 1, so that whenever he got to living in a residential environment, that he could function well without too much support. Number three was getting him a job, and there was number 3 and number 4 both pertained to work. Now, if I could go back and do it again, I do not know that Ted and I would have to talk, but I don't know having the ability to describe himself to another person or an interview was really that important. You can actually, I believe this idea I got from Total Link, which is an organization. They're a community resource partner. They're more than that, but they are one of DRS's, the Department of Rehabilitative Services, DRS. They're one of their community resource partners. So if you hear CRP, community resource partner, and they help find DRS recipient people who have a contract with, how do I put this? DRS contracted recipients jobs. Let's put it that way. And they came up with they introduced this idea of a talking resume. So if you have a nonverbal individual or someone who just freezes up like the frog in the kettle, or that singing frog, the Warner Brothers cartoon where the guy puts the frog on the stage and the frog won't sing when you need him to sing. If in any case, like if you can pre-record it, and that's what we did with Jeremy. So I don't know that I would have kept number 4, develop the ability to describe himself. That just wasn't reasonable. It took up time and effort. Develop friendship with peers is always a conundrum, is always an issue. It still is an issue to this day. Learning how to plan for and manage his time on a weekly basis. We threw a ton of resources at that. You're going to see when I show you the IEP goal and how I managed it. But in the end of all things, Jeremy has a general sense of his time. He has some alarms, but he still needs a great deal of prompts. And I don't know that number 6 would have helped us so much in the end of all things. And number 7 was learn how to use public transportation. Okay, so what we did, now remember that wheel, that colorful wheel, right? The 8 S's. This is, Jeremy's 19 years old. And we're like, what are we going to focus on here? What are the IEP goals going to be? What you are looking at now, this is a matrix that walks back by year 3 years. So what we did, you will see across the top, I don't have the 8 S's. Ted and I couldn't come up with more than 6 that were really important to us. And we didn't use an S. We know we use leisure, community member, social communication skills. I'm talking about the columns now. Independent living, self-care, self-advocacy. And across the first row, we're like, okay, what do we want Jeremy to do at 22 with respect to each of these columns? And then what we did is we worked backwards year by year to identify with as much specificity as we could. Well, if he's going to occupy himself appropriately and constructively for an hour, I know that bar might seem low to all of you, but it was a very, very big deal to us. And where we started was nowhere close to that. If we want to be able to accomplish that when he's 22 years old, okay, what do we do when he's 21? And what do we do when he's 20? And what do we do when he's 19? So that's how we managed it. And Ted and I will scrub this up somehow and find a way to share this in our handout packet, if you will, that we send out next week to all the participants. So people can use this or improve upon it. But you'll see there, 19 years old. And I want to scroll down. You can see, hopefully at the very, very bottom, this is now when Jeremy's 19. What were the current IEP goals across that very bottom row? And at the time, we only had, 6 goals. I don't know where goal 5 and goal 5 is. But anyway, I wanted to make sure that we weren't losing information, because after a while you start to feel like there's just too much information and you don't know what to focus on. So any questions at this point? Sean, anything coming in? I move on. Okay. All right. Now, one of the last things I want to share here before we maybe leave it for some questions. Okay. So this is what you're looking at. In addition to those first two documents, I made this matrix. And it went over across 2 years, Jeremy's last 2 years. And in black, what you see in black is the 2020, 2021 IEP goals. And what's in blue is 2021, 2022. In the first column, I have those 7 transition objectives, right? And I'm making sure that there's an IEP goal affixed to every one of them, or if there's not, like you'll see, getting them up and getting them dressed. We were going to take that on with our IEP team. I mean, not IEP team, excuse me, our ABA therapy team at home. So, that obviously wasn't becoming an IEP goal. And then the next column over was the goal itself. And then across the next 4 columns, moving to the right, are, the 4 quarterly benchmarks. And when merely intending to try and encourage all of you to think about is just keeping track every quarter, looking closely at those benchmarks, because as you're about to see, let's just dive in to the second row here. The transition objective in the second row is that we wanted to help Jeremy acquire the ability to work in a group and to live and function in a care ratio of 1 to 4 at least, or 1 to 6. So his teacher in the transition program suggested that we have an IEP goal around following the group. Okay. And the first update that I got in January, so now I'm in the third column, quarterly benchmark 1. She was saying, if you look on the IEP, they'll have your IEP, your loved one's IEP goal broken down against these 4 quarterly benchmarks, and they're supposed to specify to what degree are they going to be doing this, or what are they going to be doing at the first quarterly benchmark, the second, the third, the fourth. And how are they going to take data? Often they don't specify what the data looks like. Often they don't specify how they're going to take the data. All of that matters. And I hate to say it for all of us, but we have to, I encourage us all to follow it, and to keep your eye on it, because it's better to correct things as early on as possible, or have conversations, because the years go by really quick, as we all know. So he's off by 46% of the time. I don't think I dove into that, but where you see my red writing is my analysis, where I'm either catching how they're off on what they say where the goal is, like the second quarterly benchmark, they're supposed to be at 65% of charted opportunities. Well, in the IEP meeting, that certainly is worth a discussion. What do you mean by that? But in the update I received in March 31st of 2021, I noticed, well, they're only getting this whatever behavior 50% of the time. And then the next time around in June, the next quarterly update, it's up just a little bit. And I'm trying to figure out why. There's no specificity in the update. Like, why are we hovering here? You're supposed to, the goal is at 70% of charted data taking. Jeremy is to demonstrate this behavior is staying with the group, but he's only doing it 55% of the time. Why is that? What are the circumstances? So all I'm trying to do here is encourage you all to look at those. If you want to use a format like this or create your own, to just track it. Track what's going on. It will equip you to make corrections sooner in the year. It will equip you to figure out if what they're teaching is even what needs to be taught. That in itself takes a lot of thought, and I'll just pause for a second. Matt Cohen calls it business as usual. Like, it's not that education teams, all of them, mean to go about their job as business as usual. but it's the same for all of us. We go about our day in a certain sense, business as usual, and just do things to get things done. And unless there's some outside intervention or outside goal or outside something prompting us, sometimes we just don't think about things. And sometimes it can be nefarious, and sometimes it can be not that extreme and problematic, like there's some contention with the school. And then sometimes it's very well-meaning, they're just busy. And but it's business as usual. It just is. And so I want to encourage parents, and part of what I hope to be doing here in my role with Connected Community is equipping parents to do this effectively and collaboratively. You're helping the team stay on point. And if things aren't on point, helping them problem solve early on, where you can get the problem solved and see an outcome. So so that was just an example, and I of moving through the group plan. Okay, now I'm gonna try and scroll down here. Okay. And I wanted to take a look at number 3, gaining vocational experience. Okay. I just want to take a deep dive, and this is really difficult. And it was really difficult for a kid like Jeremy, who is so highly distractible. He does not currently have a job, and he did have competitive employment, but I think that was just like a generous thing. When he was under the auspices of the school that he attended, they did get him a competitively employed job. But I was noticing I'm in row 3, where we're working on gaining vocational experience and job skills. That's the Humphreys' desire for Jeremy. And we asked Jeremy, what do you want? Well, he didn't necessarily know what he wanted, but we thought, well, part of your meaningful day will be that you'll work a little bit. So that's our hope, is the first column. The IEP goal was by the annual review, when he turns 22, he has a multi-step routine. He's going to follow and complete it 80% of the time. So in other words, he's in a job site and his boss or his whomever says, you're Jer, go do these things. He's going to go get them done, 8 out of 10 times. Well, okay, so by January, so now the months are, ticking down. He's going to complete all these steps with 4 or less cues 80% of the time. And I was noticing they were off by 17.5%. I'm like, okay, well, we'll just wait and see what happens, the next time around. The date up there for benchmark 2 is wrong, but I noticed when they did type a little bit in their update, and they said, and I'm here in the 4th column in the update, that there's a typo there. It says it's January 27, 2021. That's not correct, but Jeremy will follow and complete all steps with 3 cues or less. So now they're dropping a cue. Well, that cue should be specified, by the way. In 68% of the time. I'm also not sure exactly how they pulled that number out, but after a while, you learn not to parse verbs, when you just get the job done. At times, Jerry required more than 3 cues to complete the steps. Well, if his goal is to learn, so all the writing in red is my analysis. I read this quarterly report, and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, so what's in red is my analysis in response to that update. Okay, so I'm thinking to myself, well, if the goal is to help Jer learn to do the job independently, well, what are the supports? What supports or accommodations are going to work to help him stay focused? There's, is it always going to have to be a verbal cue? Visual cues really don't work that well for him. Is there some kind of tool out there we haven't thought of? So anyway, what's in red is my analysis, and you see that it follows that, through the next, the first, second, third, and fourth quarterly benchmark. And I just encourage you all to try and set up just a quick phone call after you read your quarterly reports with your case manager or your teacher. Just have a quick conversation. If you see anything that's a red flag, say, hey, I noticed this on your quarterly report, on your statement. What's your thought on it? What's your thought to affect it in a more positive direction? Is there anything I can do to help? Just try and stay on it and or ahead of it. Okay, so again, there's way too much information here to to just go through it all. But what I always wondered is Ted and I were putting together our as Ted and I were trying to put together, it's coming down to the wire. Jeremy's 19. We have all this information, all these meetings. I would meet with other moms and be like, what kind of goals are you writing? How are you managing it? I wanted to try and share some level of specificity around our family's goals for our son, as involved as he is, as involved as he was, to try and give something tangible to others in the hopes it will help you. So anyway, you'll notice that I didn't, well, here, let's quickly analyze, develop. All right, so on your screen should be our 5th transition objective was Jeremy making friends. And that's still an issue to this day. And I hear it among many moms. We families, we have to support those friendships and urge those friendships, drive our loved ones to get together to do things if they're not involved in some kind of social rec programming. To make those happen, but they very rarely happen spontaneously, and that's hard, right? So the speech and language, she was great. Where my son was going to school, she said, well, Jeremy first really needs to see himself as like that he needs to be with people who are like himself and first become aware, like we're all like each other, because Jeremy kept gravitating and finding excuses to hang with the adults, either his one-on-one, which should have been faded out, or his teacher, or just the adults in the room or in the context. So that it was just an extremely ambitious goal for Jeremy. And the speech and language pathologist on the team was trying to explain to me, it's just the nature of the disability. They all, in her caseload, she said all these students, they have a hard time understanding friendship and reciprocity, dynamic communication exchange. It's just a challenge for them all. So anyway, I was trying to assess, what are you doing to try and facilitate relationship? And I did, is how I approach that. So any questions real quick on this? I'll go back up to this issue of, and by the way, you all know PLOP, those these acronyms, it's all acronyms. Present levels of performance weren't explaining to me, why you need a visual or an indirect verbal prompt, to help in friendship. I'm not sure that that's the best way to help people learn friendships, but again, in my analysis, I was trying to push the team to think about, and I would always share this, this was an open document between me and my education team. This wasn't like some hidden secret thing. I don't know if they even read it to any great degree because, it's a lot. But I was trying to test whether or not, they really understood, if Jeremy understood the context of friendship, for example. So anyway, so that's, again, big idea, a matrix that I created to try and keep track of Jeremy's IEP goals with respect to what we felt the 7 things we felt we wanted him to accomplish by the time he was 22, and keeping track of the quarterly progress reports. So now, there's no question about those.
Hey, Cherie, as you're shifting back, we didn't plan this. This is Ted, by the way, Cherie's husband, Jeremy's dad. I think like a big theme with what Cherie just showed you, the reason why we put together these tables and matrices was a couple-fold. I think one was we wanted to make sure the school was creating goals in the right areas. and that we weren't missing things, that the goals were truly were balanced, and that they were working towards things that were important for Jeremy's overall life, not just how the school would define things. I think the second thing is, as you all know, IEPs, the 20, 30 pages long, tons of detail, the formatting's horrible. We just needed something simple, right, that we could look at and just
Yes.
keep the big picture. And then the
Yep.
third thing was we needed to coordinate outside of the school. So the school kind of has their view, and they had okay, here are his 5 IEP goals. But we were working on different stuff with his ABA therapist, or different things with his private therapist, or different things just that Cherie and I wanted to help him do. And so it was like a map to the overall success of Jeremy in life, but taking into consideration what the school was doing. And that, I think, is a real challenge around transition planning and what we were trying to do. And, Cherie showing you an example of how we did it.
Yes. And my hope is, let's just all presume that this is the floor. What I showed all of you is like entry level, basic approach. And let's try and help each other improve upon this, not only for your sakes, but for the others coming up behind all of you through this process and onward. We leave a legacy of trying to make transition planning in terms of a process more effective and strategic, and simplify like Ted said, all the information, and make it more user friendly. So thank you, Ted. That was, yeah, that was awesome. Okay, so what happened with Jeremy? So I just want to wrap up, and I want to take some questions. I see some things are popping up in the chat rooms. That's awesome. And we'll also get your best ideas. What happened with Jeremy? So here he is. He is now at the Center for Enriched Living. He is there 5 days a week. We did start out bridging between Pursuit and Center for Enriched Living, and then we migrated over to being at Center for Enriched Living full-time. He's in their Reach Day program there, and 3 days a week, and 2 days he's at their Catalyst, which is very resemblant of school, not like school, but it's resemblant. It's more day programish, teaching life skills. And we still are having problems with that, following the group situation with Jeremy. And I will have to say that in hindsight, I don't know how we would have done anything different, because much of Jeremy's journey happened at the pandemic, and he lost basically a whole year. And then, 2021 was everybody trying to manage germs and whatnot. But anyway, in hindsight, I wish that we would have figured some things out with greater specificity for Jer, because he still needs a lot of support. He takes PACE every day. We have the PACE bus that is the front of my house. It's $3.25 each way. He has a scheduled ride. There are advantages and disadvantages, and PACE is not the only option. They're also under the auspices of the paratransit door-to-door is a taxi service, which is also $3.25 a ride. I've yet to try it out. I know people who have, and who are pleased with it. Uber is much too expensive. I do Uber now and then. And by the way, just real quick, let me just pause on that. Jer has an iPad, an iPhone, and an Apple Watch. So we can track him and where he goes, by find my iPhone, find my Apple device. So going back to remembering things, he has forgotten his iPhone on the PACE bus twice. That's a real good time going and trying to find it. One time in an Uber, he left his lunch bag in there, and that is kind of important, because I forgot to mention Jeremy's G-tube fed, but tracking down that Uber was not easy. So I would highly recommend things of value to be air tagged. After that whole debacle, I purchased an AirTag, or whatever that device is from Apple, to put on Jeremy's highly valuable valuables. But we had the Uber app, the Lyft app, actually on Jeremy's iPhone, and the school taught him how to use it. It was an IP goal. They actually allocated his one-on-one support to help teach him how to order it, and then they would follow him to where he was going, which in that case in school, it was used to go from the transition program to his job. And the one-on-one would follow the Uber to the job to make sure everything went okay. And then she served as his job coach. So she'd park her car in the parking lot and serve as a job coach and so on and so forth during, those employment hours he's, employed or doing his work. Anyway, Jeremy then started ordering rides to Vancouver and Santa Fe, New Mexico. He had to take the lift off. So anyway, all that to say, there's things to navigate with transportation, and everybody that I've talked to says it's a conundrum. Sunday through Thursday nights, he does a reading club with a nurse from Kirk School who I'm friends with. She has a deep love in her heart for this community, and she's cared and served many students over her long career. She's still a nurse at Kirk School, and so she does this reading club Sunday through Thursday nights. And then Jeremy on Monday nights, he does a volunteer. So going back, thinking about that colorful pie chart, one of those was service. Jared does volunteer work with an organization called Hopes In. And the Hopes In internship program is for the IDD community, the individuals with developmental disabilities. And they create crafts, and then they sell their crafts to raise hope for the poor and underserved in Guatemala. So Hopes In is an organization that serves the needs of that population, of the needy population in Guatemala. But then the Hopes In internship team, which there's 4 of the 6 of the team, they make things to raise money for the parent organization, which I think is really cool. So that's Monday nights. So Jared's a pretty full schedule. He's in day program, then he's got his reading club on Monday nights. He's at Hopes In. Saturday evenings, he's with our friends a couple times a month. He goes over and sets up things at our church, and they provide us respite so we can get out on a date, which is really important to do now and then. One of the things that did drop for Jeremy, we used to do a lot of work on physical therapy, occupational therapy. We basically grew up from the time Jeremy was 4 months of age through probably age 19 in the private therapy orbit. We were at Pathways, Easter Seals, Arlington Pediatric Therapy before they got acquired by Lurie. I was very diligent, as someone who works out and exercises a lot. We're a very active family. All of us are involved in sports and stuff. Worked Jeremy out on my own. We got membership at the YMCA, got personal trainers at the Bueller YMCA, excuse me. We live in downtown Palatine, and we joined the Y, and all our kids took classes, and Jared would be in personal training with a personal trainer. That all sort of fell by the wayside, and I will have to say I have not been able to sustain that with the same vigor, and I see it affecting his biomechanics, which was something I was always racing against with the cerebral palsy his entire life. And I could see when he was 10 years old, 13 years old, 16 years old, I could see coming down the pike, if I didn't do X, it was going to affect him as an adult. So that's why I was so vigilant all those years through 19 to keep up with all this, with a lot of work. And I just have not been able to sustain it, and it's fallen off Jeremy's. It never really was an interest of his. We just sort of made him go. But then when he started to exercise or be more self-directed, he started showing us in more passive aggressive ways. I've had it with all this PTOT stuff. This is, I don't know, painful, uncomfortable. I don't know, but it became very difficult to do that with him, and it fell off our plate. And I do see the repercussions of that coming up through the cerebral palsy. So I don't know what to do about it. Maybe one of you have a suggestion. And then I just wanted to pass on just this. I don't know if this is the best encouragement quote for us, but just to remember that our successes are not final. Our failures, if we ever have them, are not the end, but we are some of the most courageous people I know to continue doing the hard things. And I have nothing but the utmost respect. And God forbid there ever was a war, who I would want to be in the trenches with would be parents from this population, hands down, no doubt about it. They are some of the toughest, most courageous, brilliant, and steadfast individuals that I've ever met in my life. So hats off to all of you and the hard work that you are doing. I want to say thank you for your time. If you have any questions, suggestions, ideas, there's my email address. You can email me. I just want to open up the floor for some questions. Shauna, if you wanted to moderate or facilitate that.
So it doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat.
Good. Okay.
So if anyone wants to go ahead and unmute themselves now, ask any questions.
Or what ideas might any of you have, or what have you tried to manage your information?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. My name's Dina, and I just wanted to say I really found it helpful to see how you guys talked about that. I don't have a copy of the slides because I'm doing this on my phone, but it was this discussion, and I think you had a sample that you were going through of like your own summary and consolidation of the IEP.
Mhm.
I just think that's so helpful. My daughter's 14, and since her first IEP, I've been thinking like, what a terrible form. And why is there not another way for us to go through this?
Yep.
And I hope you'll include whatever in the materials that you email to us next week, because I really look forward to putting something together that's like my document of what my goals are for my daughter.
Mhm.
That you know, we try so hard to communicate them in these meetings, but then at the end it's like we rely on them to like summarize it and put it into a form that works for the district, that has to do with their goals.
Mhm.
And so many of those are very academic focused for some kids, which are great, but there are these other sort of just I don't know, I just really appreciate that, so I hope you'll include that in the materials.
Absolutely. I have to, Ted and I have to figure out how to, we definitely, yes, we're definitely going to, I'm going to include all three. And they're actually, I think they're all created like in Microsoft Word. They're not even complicated, you know, they're like tables in Microsoft Word, but as opposed to it being Excel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
Yes, one of my passions is to try and help parents see themselves elevated to, you don't want to use the word team leader, that sets off other IEP team members. I tried that once, it didn't go well. Or tried that for a season, because I don't believe in leaderless teams. That's a whole other conversation for another day, but I'm with you. You're not alone. I would love to see improvement to the IEP as a document, because it's just so hard to navigate. And coming from a business mindset, particularly my husband and then myself, it just did over and over. It did not make sense. I mean, yeah, and in the very least, we tried to elevate ourselves to thinking like, or we're not going to call ourselves the team lead, but we're going to view ourselves as the manager, and we don't want to micromanage. But what mean, like if you're on a team and the team isn't performing right, you say, oh, you poor suckers, you know, good luck, have, you know, keep trying harder. I mean, no, as a teammate or as a team member or as the manager of the team, you're going to be try how can I help? Is there something I could do to problem solve? So I think because the way the system is structured, it neuters us. And
Yeah, but how did you have this document throughout his
mhm.
education, and how was the district? Like, were they receptive to you having your own document, or was it kind of presented like your own like parental input?
Oh, we presented like parental input. Yeah,
Yeah.
this didn't replace the IEP,
Yeah.
but but we have really good working relationships with the people. And like I said, the teachers don't have time to read, and imagine if they've got 10 students and they got parents creating documents this robust. They're probably not going to take the time to read it all or keep track of it all. That's why we as the parents have to we have to keep it in our head to stay on top of it. It's hard, and I wish we weren't in this position, but we are. And as well-meaning as when it is well-meaning, as well-meaning as our educators might be, they cannot read and keep up with everything. As you see in your quarterly benchmark reports, I would guarantee it's lacking specificity.
And you know what else? This form, if you create one as a parent, that really is sort of your assessment of your child. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like even in other aspects, whether it's at your church or other places where you send your child, it can sort of be a summary of like, here's where my kid is, and here's the things we're working on, and here's some of our goals, because it gets so tiring having to repeat it again and again and again to people.
Absolutely. In fact,
Yeah.
one of the most, yes, absolutely. I hope at some point in the future, I have to see if Mark Russell is still practicing, but he's an attorney that came into Connected Community many years ago, and he talked about this concept of what you're sharing. He called it a letter of intent. He was encouraging parents to make sure you've got like almost a binder that explains things. Yeah. So yes, you are on to something. Again, I would just love to get parents together and we could start brainstorming improvements to these processes and the documents, and see if we could affect change even at the ISB level, right? With the Illinois State Board of Education, or whatever the software is, because they're running software that produces these documents. It's being elected. So anyway, we can affect change if we can start putting our heads together and make some very strategic recommendations. Because yes, the process needs improvement, like how they treat us and how IEPs are just run in general, and then the document itself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your thoughts. It's excellent. Anyone else?
Yeah, so there's there's a couple questions just came in through the chat. So
Great.
another tool I have been looking at is the Charting the Life course. Family Matters is doing monthly webinars explaining it. Anyone else use this?
I haven't used it.
And then someone said you did an excellent job, Cherie. I agree.
Thank you. It's a lot of information. And I guess as a closing thought, if any of you who are still in on the session, could do us the kindness of recommending what you want to know more about in a format for it. I would love to move to more in-person format. Another thing, I felt like Ted and I did so much work on our own, and I really would have loved to have sat down in round tables with other parents, and we all pull out our IEPs, and we're all in similar places, and help each other think through refining and strategizing. Just get more support and input. Again, that's how it works in the business world a lot of time.
Yeah. One more comment. You talked about just the PT orbit that was in the through private therapy from when your son was 4 through till he was 19, and how you just, you can't keep, I mean, I'm in a similar situation. My daughter's only 14 though. And it's this, the pressure, because the school is giving PT once a week for 20 minutes, it's like, what is that? Nothing, so this responsibility of having to do PT for your child that you're describing, yeah, it really is exhausting. And
Yes.
I can see where and I did just like you, doing so much myself, training sitters to help me, teaching them what exercises to work on, the whole
Yep.
thing, like the leader of the therapy team. And I just noticed that we're at the year 14 mark, and she's gotten bigger, and I'm just exhausted, she's almost as big as me. So I don't know what the next step is, you know, do I
Mhm.
have to now start taking her like 2 to 3 times a week to a therapy center because they have more equipment and they have 2 to 3 people that can work on her so
Mhm.
that she doesn't start deteriorating? Because up till now, I've done a great job, but I don't see myself being able to maintain this into the future.
Right.
So yeah, I would love to talk with others about how do we do that? You know,
Yeah.
that's an area I'm feeling a lot of discouragement in.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. Yes, it is those teenagers. They're bigger, they're stronger. And if they're exercising any, again, their self-directedness, like I'm tired of this, and they can't quite articulate that in those terms. Oh my. Yeah. I'm gonna make note of that because that is a really big deal. With Jeremy, you know, again, going back to that colorful pie, you know, we want him to be involved in our community. I mean, we've lived in our home 30 years. I know some of the business owners downtown. I mean, I'm 2 blocks from downtown Palatine. So we wanted to remain really involved in the community. And that's the vision, you know, when Connected Community started and I was around in those fledgling years. Like, all right, I'm going to try and get to know everybody and introduce everybody around here to Jeremy, you know, the business owners, the YMCA, et cetera. But Jer just didn't want it. Yeah, I don't, yeah, I don't know what to do. Um, if you have good insurance, yeah, and email me. I'd like to talk more about that.
Sure.
Yeah, because then what you start facing is their biomechanics degrees, you start facing possible, you know, more intrusive interventions like surgeries and so forth. I mean, Jeremy's already had a major, you know, surgery. You have a derotation surgery when he was 13, which was a massive deal.
Mhm.
But he's heading that direction. He's heading in some direction again because his gait pulled his brain pulled him right back into the pattern that got him into the trouble in the first place. Are you on Instagram, by the way, or any social media?
Um,
Hmm?
I mean, I'm on Facebook. I'm
Facebook?
on
Okay.
Instagram. Yeah, yes, I'm on
Okay.
Instagram. I don't
Okay.
post, but I'm
There's
on. Yeah.
Well, the reason why I ask is because of the algorithm. If you look up some, I don't know how Steffi's Hammerman's, how to spell her name, but when Jeremy was, you know, 15, 16, 17, I knew about her. So I don't know what age she is now, but she's got cerebral palsy, but she is a CrossFit athlete. But the reason why I asked you if you're on social media is because once you start searching for something, the algorithm picks up that you're
Yeah.
looking for this.
Yeah.
So that's going to send you not just her, but it's going to send you others because there's others like
Great
her.
idea. Stephanie
Yeah.
Hammerman, you said?
Yeah, him. Yeah, but as soon as you start to type it, you know how if you're misspelling it.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll find it.
Yeah,
Thank
Stephanie
you.
Hammerman. She's I hope she's still doing CrossFit, but she was at CrossFit. And I was trying to model after her and hold her up like as someone to, you know, to serve as a role model for Jeremy. I didn't know her. I never met her. I mean, she was like famous back then even. But just that, wow, here's somebody who's got an even more extreme version of Jeremy's condition in
Mhm.
terms of his biomechanics, but she is like an athlete.
Yeah.
You know, she is committed to working out, you know, and to your point, yes, PT at school is appreciated, but those who prevail upon those related services exclusively, well, if that's all you need, great. But if you need
Oh,
more,
right, right.
if you need more, you need more. Yeah, those are great points.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone, you said there was another one, Shauna?
Nope, that we
Oh,
answered
good.
all the questions. So
Okay. Well, thank you everybody so much for your patience and your attention. And we will send out all this information and improve upon it and then share what you know and what you learned so that we can help elevate everybody's capability and see our loved ones having more robust lives.
yeah, thank you, Cherie.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.